That's right, it's fixed, it's up on the dyno, it's time to run the Buick, baby, the other guy's 455. To establish the baseline on the Buick, I wanted to start out with basically everything stock. The only thing I wasn't able to do is I had to replace a Quadrajet carburetor with a Holley Brawler carburetor because I just couldn't get the Quadrajet to work. So stock exhaust manifolds, stock intake manifolds, stock head, stock short block, and cam. As far as we know, we won't know really till we take that thing apart, but it seems like it after the way it idles and stuff. It has a lot of vacuum and it wants to idle way down low, and it wants to make peak torque way down low. So we're going to start off with the stock exhaust manifolds, then switch over to long tube headers, and finish things up with little nitrous. Okay, we got our pan off. So here, and we're definitely hitting, as we can see, right there. Seems like we're also hitting right here. And got some really pretty sludge in there. Gonna clean it all up, hammer it out, put it back on. Okay, we got our hammer. Here's our handiwork. We'll have to see if that's enough. Gonna mock it up, find out. Obviously, we've got to take a look at our power output of each one of our tests that we ran. This is a stock combination, Buick 455. We think that this is a 75 model, although looking at the cylinder heads, they do have the little tag on, the little heat tag, so we think that something at least has been rebuilt, probably the heads. We won't know until we take this thing apart and find out. It does appear to have the stock camshaft in it, just judging by the idle quality and where this thing wants to make peak torque at. It certainly has to have the stock springs in it because we got valve flow pretty early on this thing. We were only revving it to 5,000 RPM. If you go to right there or even 5,100, you definitely get into valve flow. But run with the stock exhaust manifolds, the stock intake manifold, what we think is the stock cam, certainly the stock heads, and we're pretty sure it's the stock short block. But the only change we had to make was I removed that Quadrajet carburetor and put a 750 Holley Brawler on there using an adapter plate. I just couldn't get the Quadrajet to run, and I'm disappointed. I know I should get lots of comments. Make sure you guys make comments, tell me what an idiot I am. I wanted to run the Quadrajet just because I wanted it to make the Quadrajet noise, which is awesome. And that's what the manifold was designed for, so it probably should have worked better. But run in stock trim with that Holley Brawler carburetor. This thing made 307.9, so we're going to call that 308 horsepower. Peak torque was 465 foot-pounds. I know I'm going to get a lot of comments here. We started it at 2,000 RPM, and everyone's going to say, well, you should have started it lower than that because the peak wasn't lower than that. The reality is that first load-in point, like I started at 3,000, and it had this little starting whoop-de there. Started at 3,000, then I moved it back to 2,500. I had that same thing at 2,500. I moved it back to 2,000, had the same thing at 2,000, and the number actually was always the same. So I think that the real peak torque on this thing is probably out here at 2,600 or 2,700, which is still fairly low. But this thing makes a lot more torque than horsepower, and this is the low compression version because it's a mid-70s. It has the HEI distributor and stuff. So this is still a good combination, still proving that these Buick 455 motors were definitely low RPM torque motors. So now let's take a look and see what happened when we added long tube headers. I don't even get to stop for lunch. Little truck stop pizza. What's up, truck stop? Yeah, what's up? Extension. Vector extension. We just ran the baseline runs with the stock exhaust manifolds. Now we swapped on long tube headers. They're 1 7/8. They have a 3.5 inch collector. We've got an extension on them as we showed in the videos. Let's find out how they do. This is our stock combination, 308 horsepower and 465 foot-pounds, and this was with the stock cast iron exhaust manifolds run into 2.5 inch exhaust. So it was just sections that we had laying around that I had used for a 5-liter Mustang application before. But here's what happened when we put long tube headers on it. These headers were on loan from Steve Dulcich and David Freiberger. I'm not sure what they are or what they fit. They're 1 7/8 long tubes. They go into a 3.5 inch collector, and we added collector extensions on them to obviously help improve the torque. But the interesting thing is, and maybe not surprisingly so, here's what happened when we added the headers. They did pick up power. You know, we're talking about a maximum of 10 or 11 horsepower out here at the top. They did not pick up anything down low, which is interesting given the long tube stuff. And I think that this is probably just a function of the fact that this is a stock motor with very mild cam timing and stock heads and stuff, so you're not going to get big gains from the headers. I maybe want to reproduce this test after I put at least a cam in it and see if there's an even bigger difference between the headers and the stock exhaust manifolds once we add the cam. Now I've hopefully got some Edelbrock heads coming for it and an intake, so we can compare that obviously after we have even more modifications, which should be pretty cool. So now let's take a look and see what happened when we added nitrous. Round one with the other guy's Buick 455 is actually in the books. Now we got to run the stock exhaust manifolds, we got to run long tube headers, and we got to run a small shot of nitrous with that sniper plate, which is awesome. It liked the nitrous, we were even gauging it fairly low, and nothing broke, so it was awesome. But it wasn't without problems. Last night, I obviously had to take the oil pan off because something was hitting. We had basically a rod knock, but it turned out it was the connecting rod hitting the pan. I'm sure it's from setting the motor down on something and squishing the oil pan, but I had to take the pan off, pound it out, and make, some clearance for it, so it wasn't hitting more, but I managed to do that. We also had a leak in the water pump I fixed with silicone, you know how we do it. I had to go get some exhaust manifold gaskets and stuff. It's just all normal stuff, hey, I got to do this. Oh, there's a problem with that. Now I got to fix that problem. That's how it always is with the dyno, and it is with all these other guys' things, because let's face it, that was a used motor that somebody was going to throw away. Thanks, David Freiberger. That's going to work out really good. But the motor's good. It sounds good. It works good. It's running. It makes a ton of torque, as we all expect from Buicks, which is kind of a cool thing. It made good with the nitrous sound. Now I want to raise this thing up. It's probably got a stock camshaft in it. We'll find that out when we take this thing apart. I'm sure it has stock valve springs in it, because this thing valve floats at about 5,000 or 5,100 RPM, depending on how hot we run it. So I wouldn't be surprised to find single springs, maybe with a dampener, something that only has like 80 or 90 pounds of seat pressure. Because again, these things were never RPM motors. Nobody ever revved these things. They didn't have to, because they make a ton of torque. You guys will all like the fact that I started these runs at 2,000 RPM and ran from 2,000 to 5,000, engaged the nitrous fairly early, so we got some pretty big torque numbers. I'm excited about this. I can't wait to get the cam in it, and I can't wait to get another intake other than the factory cast iron intake manifold. There's going to be some good upgrades. I think I've got some cylinder heads coming, so cool stuff coming up for the Buick, but right behind that, more 292. I just had 4 intake manifolds arrive for the 292 inline 6-cylinder Chevy. That's going to be cool stuff. Keep watching, guys. Like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. Come on, you know the drill. Let's go.